fully charged and ready to roll. The Elias Macco Show, CJAD 800.
Welcome back. David Hertel in for Elias. Back in September, we learned about one company that is using drones to detect landmines in Ukraine. Landmines that plague Ukraine following drawn-out fighting have a new enemy as mine-sweeping teams get a boost from high-tech drones. The big picture, as much as 62,000 square miles of Ukrainian land could be contaminated by mines, per Kyiv's most recent estimate. Removing all those explosives in waiting will take years, if not decades. Mid-April, Dragonfly will be in Cherkasy, Ukraine, to train and detect any landmines that may be harboring there. Joining us is Dragonfly CEO Cam Chell. Cam, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's an honor to be here on International Mine Awareness Day, and thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, tell us, what the situation is. What's the landmine situation like in Ukraine? Give us an idea. 62,000 square miles. That is enormous territory. How do you even tackle such a gargantuan task?
Well, I think that's the point exactly. The insidious nature of how mines are now being used in conflict, really as a terrorist, and both economically and from a humanitarian perspective, it's just at a whole new level. Like literally in the course of the last year, Ukraine has gone from having mined areas in its area of conflict with Russia since 2014 to almost overnight. Figuratively becoming the most densely populated landmined area in the world. It will take upwards of 30, if not 40 years to demine the Ukraine. And, of course, this has huge implications to the people of Ukraine. It has huge implications to the economics of the world and to the food supply of the world. And, the mining of Ukraine, literally are dropping anti-personnel mines from planes, or dropping, ordnance, that explode out of shells. They're actually using old 1980s, vintage ordnance or shells and just bombing fields. They're just like because 20% of those ordnance don't explode. So effectively that entire field is now useless because you've got, unexploded ordnance in the area. So just the insidious nature of it is incredible. So the volume requires a new type of technology and a new type of approach to be able to combat this for the people of Ukraine and for the breadbasket of the world.
So tell me more about this technology. I understand what a drone is, but how can a drone be effective in trying to upend this scourge?
So Dragonfly, we're a Canadian company. We've been around for 25 years doing all sorts of different applications with drones, military defense, public safety, search and rescue. In fact, the Dragonfly drone was the first drone that saved a human life. It's in the Smithsonian today. So, as a public company, we trade on NASDAQ. DPRO is our symbol. And we really take advanced technologies like things like magnetometers, LiDARs, hyperspectral cameras, thermal cameras, and we literally have a fleet of drones that goes out and scans a field, twice a day. Once in the morning when the temperatures are cooler, and then in the afternoon when they're at their height, late afternoon when they're at their height, so that we can see all the anomalies in a particular field or area. Everything from temperature-sensitive differences to metal readings. We'll even use different chemical sensors that are very, very sensitive, electrical sensors, and we basically produce a map. And that map then is provided and placed into the workflow of the demining crews that use that to say, okay, where are we going to start doing the work first? So, but we're also looking things for where has foliage been upended? Where have there been trenches built? Where is there spent ammunition? Where is there new trails that don't look, like they're natural or out of place? And so any and all of that information is actually then applied into this AI engine and gives, not just the probabilities, but starts to predict, the spread and where mines are most likely going to be as well, and it starts to classify all these mines. So the use of this advanced technology is really the basis by which over the coming years this whole process will be able to speed up.
So you mentioned AI. So artificial intelligence plays a big role in detecting, and the end result is what you map out territory, and you then what you send this to Ukrainian forces. How who are you working with on this?
Yeah, so we work with the actual Ukrainian forces, the DSNS, which is the emergency services, as well as a number of very large government-funded NGOs that are experts in demining, right? And these NGOs are funded by everything from the State Department to different parts of the European community. And they literally have hundreds and hundreds of people that are walking these fields, that are trained, that are actually doing the detection, using the information that we're providing to them, and then they go through and do the removal piece as well. So we're working in conjunction with them, weeks and days ahead of time before they go into a planned area, in order to provide them information that's just never been available before. And what the use of the AI is now starting to become prevalent, but before we never really had data. Right? So before it was all, you walk the field and you poke a stick or you use a metal detector, and so now quite frankly, they're still doing the same thing, but they've got the benefit of having these maps and a bunch of data that starts to give a bit more indication of where they need to start or where they need to avoid or where they need to bring in different types of equipment. But the more data that we get on everything from spread patterns to the types of mines to the depths to how temperature affects things to how much the ground shifts in a particular area over the course of a month or a season, that all now gives us better indication as to, where these, because like literally, a mine can move feet in a matter of days. Just because of ground swell and different types of temperatures. So AI is now becoming a prevalent part of what this is. But it all starts with being able to quickly gather this information by using the drone.
You mentioned that you're doing work with the Ukrainian forces on the ground, but also you mentioned NGOs, so non-governmental organizations. What kind of organizations do you work with in Ukraine or elsewhere in the world?
Yeah, so one can just do a Google search and you can see all the large organizations out there, and those are the organizations that we work with. I'm not at liberty to say exactly how and when and where, but
okay.
but somebody can figure out the main names pretty quickly. But these are organizations that are funded with tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars per year in order to solve this problem. The economic impact, not much less the humanitarian impact. It's an immediate ROI when governments are putting capital to use in order to get matters demined. But this is, I would say Dragonfly is unfortunately it's a big problem. But Dragonfly is in a fortunate position to now be one of the leaders, if not maybe the leader in the world in terms of being able to use drones to demine the world. And there's 100 years of work in front of us, which is really unfortunate.
It's incredible. Honestly, since the beginning of this conflict, we've been, following this through the media. We haven't heard that much about landmines, and I think it's important to talk about this. But how would you characterize the importance of landmines in Russia's strategy? It seems like it's a main component of this scorched earth policy that Vladimir Putin is trying to enforce in Ukraine.
Well, I think there's three basic components that are being used here. So first of all, they're using it as a terror tactic, which is really unfortunate and probably borderlines of war crime, certainly in my mind. The second way they're using it is they're using it as an offensive scenario where they'll put it into combat zones where they know they're not going to be entering, but there might be operations by Ukrainian forces. And then thirdly, they're using it as a defensive technique. So as they were retreating out of the Kherson region, when they lost that region, which was a big battle, the only probably, and this is a bit more my opinion, but it's backed up by some pretty good data. The only reason that advanced, the Ukrainians weren't able to advance even further past Kherson, was the fact that it's just so heavily mined in that area. That was, candidly, the defense that the Russians have is either using prisoners as ammunition, really, expendable, or just to absolutely lace areas with landmines. So the further you get into the eastern part of Ukraine, the even more dense that this problem is. So they're an incredibly strategic and important tactical part of the Russian strategy.
Cam, first of all, I want to thank you and your team for this great work and bringing this to the forefront. I wish you all the best, and thank you for taking the time today.
We're honored to be on your show and be a Canadian company doing what we can. Thanks for all your help and support.
All right, take care. Godspeed. Chell, Dragonfly CEO, coming up.